You're watching the PBS NewsHour. I'm Hari Srinivasan, and late this afternoon, on a Sunday afternoon, you don't expect a lot of major breaking stories to happen, but all around the world at about 2 p.m. Eastern, journalism institutions started publishing something with the hashtag Panama Papers, or at least you see that trending on Twitter right now and on different social media. And it is the largest investigative journalism collaboration that's, I think, ever taken place. And it dives into the world of offshore companies and how the rich and powerful are hiding their wealth. And to explain a lot more about that is Gerard Ryle. He is the head of the ICIJ, and ICIJ is the organization that helped coordinate all this, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. So, Gerard, first of all, what are the Panama Papers?
Well, what we're looking at is about 11.5 million records from a company called Mossack Fonseca. And what this is it's a law firm that's based in Panama, but they've actually got offices around the world, including several here in the US. And what they do is they set up offshore accounts for people. And so if you want to go to a tax haven and have a company that is the owner of a bank account that cannot be traced to your name, this is the company you would go to. And they're actually one of the biggest in the world at doing that, one of the top 5.
So technically, just for our audience, it is not illegal to have an offshore account. But what is it that this trove of documents shows us about how this law firm has worked or what they've done over a period of 40 years?
Well, yeah, I guess it's probably the most stunning is that the range of people that they work with. I mean, most of their clients are actually major everyday banks, accountancy firms, law firms. And they're even saying that the end user, the person who actually whose name is actually on the offshore account, is not even their client. It's the big banks that are their clients. So it's the range of users here that's so stunning. You've got everyone from prime ministers, presidents, to people who've been caught dealing drugs. You've got people on the sanctions list. And in fact, there were about 33 individuals or companies that we found on the US sanctions list.
Right. You know, I want to start to shift and share the screen of some of the stuff that you guys have on your site. I mean, this is kind of a rundown that you've said. It's 11.5 million secret files, 140 politicians from more than 50 countries connected to offshore companies in 21 tax havens, heads of state, as you mentioned. And behind this cool interactive is different. You have it organized by country leaders and politicians and public officials. So what are these country leaders? I know that they're all different cases, but what are some examples of what some of these country leaders are doing?
Well, I mean, what we were aiming at doing is really establishing a public interest in these documents. We weren't interested in the average businessman who goes offshore to do whatever they have to do, or a big company, for instance, that might legitimately use the offshore world. What we were trying to do was basically go after people who are public figures, so politicians and the like. And we found hundreds of them here. And what you're seeing there is actually the app we built that would allow you to go in and look at people that are recognizable. You know, there are a lot of people who are very close to Vladimir Putin in Russia. There's the Prime Minister of Iceland in there. There's the President of the Ukraine. And you can go in and actually find out, you know, whether they declared these companies or not to the public. For instance, in the case of the Prime Minister of Iceland, he did not declare that he had an offshore company when he entered Parliament. And the rules of Parliament there state that you should have done that. So it's not like they're doing anything illegal, but in some cases, of course, you would say that they may have breached ethics rules in their own countries. So
this is, you know, even today, you're starting to see a little bit of the repercussions of this. There was an interview with the Prime Minister of Iceland where he actually got up and walked away when he was starting to be asked these questions about exactly what his involvement was, who was in control, et cetera, et cetera. He was reluctant, obviously, to have this conversation. What are one of the big ones I think the Guardian had picked up on, and I'll point to that if I can find it here, was people who were close to Vladimir Putin, what you pointed out. What is the connection to Vladimir Putin, or what do these documents reveal?
Well, what they reveal is about $2 billion that has flowed through offshore accounts that are linked directly to people who are very close to Vladimir Putin. And in some cases, we're talking about loans that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars that are being assigned to offshore companies for the princely sum of $1. So it's rather suspicious. I mean, all we can do is report on what we see. And one of the people involved here is a person whose profession is a cello player in an orchestra in Moscow. But he's also the godfather of Putin's daughter. And what we also see is that one of these offshore accounts, one of these offshore firms, is the owner of a ski resort where Vladimir Putin's daughter got married a few years ago.
Sorry, I must have been on mute there. Sorry about that. I was asking, The Guardian has this pullout that says how to hide $1 billion. And so how does it work? I mean, is it a friend of Putin that profits from a policy decision that he makes, and they have an investment that they're just too lucky to have profited from?
Well, it's very complicated. I mean, what we're seeing here is only one part of the show, I guess. What we're seeing are loans that appear to be going from state-owned companies, or in one case, a state-owned bank, to these offshore entities. And you've got to remember that all we're seeing is one part of the transaction. So to get the full picture, we obviously approach people for comment, and they're reluctant to comment about basically what was really happening. So what we're seeing here are basically suspicious transactions. We've shown them to experts that have confirmed that this seemed a little unusual. For instance, some of the loans will be given in rubles, or sorry, in dollars, but then paid back in rubles. And of course, if you invade Crimea, then of course the ruble is going to go down in value. So it seems a strange type, commercial transaction.
Has there been any reaction from the Kremlin yet?
Well, before we even published, in fact, we got reaction from the Kremlin. When we set our questions into the Kremlin, there was a press conference last Monday where Vladimir Putin's spokesperson came out and attacked us. At that point, of course, they thought it was just about them. And they accused the ICIJ, which we're a little tiny non-profit based in Washington, D.C. They accused us of actually being an arm of the American government, which of course is patently ridiculous.
I keep muting myself to my own detriment. I just don't want to interrupt you. But so let me also share this game that you have online on how this works. So what are these games designed to help people understand?
Well, because this is so complicated, I mean, this offshore world is very complicated. I mean, you can basically hide through 3 or 4 different layers. What we've tried to do here with the game is to take you through various scenarios. So anyone from the public can go in, and each one of these scenarios, you have choices. You can either declare, for instance, that you have an offshore account if you're a politician, or not declare. And of course, if you declare, you get brought into one scenario, and if you don't declare, then you get brought into a different scenario. And it's the same with, we're seeing an awful lot of sports people, for instance, very famous sports people with offshore accounts. And what they appear to be doing is putting their image rights into the offshore account, so that if you're, say, a famous soccer player and you're the employee of a famous soccer team in Europe, it saves you on tax not having to pay that money in the country where you're playing. Again, is it legal? It possibly is legal. That's what's so interesting about the offshore world. You can have rules in your own country, and then when you go offshore, there are a brand new set of rules.
One of the things that I wanted to ask about, just as a journalist, is that a lot of these websites are publishing the results of investigations that they've been handling for now probably close to a year, if not longer. How was it possible to get such a large group of journalists to basically keep a secret and all published at the same time?
Well, we've been working like this now for the last four and a half years. And basically what we're trying to do is counter the current trend in journalism, which is, of course, that we're all running out of money and resources. The business model that is sustaining journalism is essentially broken. So what we're trying to do here at the ICIJ is promote a brand new model, which is where we all collaborate and share resources. We have been doing it on a slightly smaller scale and building up We've done 4 of these major collaborations now, and each one has more or less doubled in size. This one, of course, is a monstrosity. We had more than 100 major media organizations around the world join it. We met in person 4 times in various countries. Once here in Washington, D.C. We also met in Munich. We had a special meeting in Africa for the African journalists. But most of the work we've been doing is actually online. We build a special place where all the journalists can go in every day. So when they go into their physical newsrooms, they also log on virtually into the ICIJ newsroom. And that allows them to talk openly about what they're finding, to share results and everything else. What we're really doing is making sure that if they find something of interest to their country, that they're telling others. And if they find something of interest to someone else's country, they have to share that. So it's really a matter of building up trust.
And I want to start sharing a little bit of the screens of, I mean, this is from Süddeutsche Zeitung. This is a German paper. Now, is this the institution that originally was given the leaked information, the leaked documents?
Yes, yes. The information originally came to a reporter from Süddeutsche Zeitung, Bastian Obermeier. It's an anonymous source. He got contacted as a result of previous investigations that he had worked on with ICIJ and Süddeutsche Zeitung. And initially it came in as what we thought was going to be, an interesting but small leak. And it just kept growing and growing to the point where we realized in the end we had 11.5 million documents. And what we do here at ICIJ is that we do an awful lot of data analysis. We build the tools that the journalists use to examine the materials. So we're able to pipe all of the documents over the internet right into the laptops and mainframes of the newspapers and TV stations and radio stations around the world that we work with. So they can look at all the documents and make up their own mind about what they think is of relevance or newsworthy to their own country.
Right, and I've just switched over to the BBC News page. This is what they published a couple of hours ago, and they plan to have a television hour-long program about this. And then I'm also flipping over to Fusion, the joint venture between ABC and I think it's Univision, I can't remember. But they have a fantastic long interactive about this that dives deep into shell companies. I think when I scroll down here, they even have a WWF wrestler and at one point a porn star explaining how shell companies work. If that helps people understand, so be it. It's pretty tremendous how deep this collaboration has gone. So I'm wondering, why today? What was the reasoning for waiting this long? Is there something that provoked this, or is this something that you planned?
This was planned through, when we had the live meetings, when we got all the reporters at their own expense to come to the live meetings, we talked about timing. We warned from day one that this was going to take a long time. Now, obviously, Süddeutsche Zeitung at the beginning was very anxious to get it out right away. They were worried that someone else would get it. And we had to basically shepherd it through it. And no, I mean, the timing is, this was decided months ago. And in fact, we were originally going to publish about 2 weeks ago, but at the last minute, the German partner said, well, we have local elections in Germany and Angela Merkel, who's the chancellor there, might be in trouble, so therefore it'll take away. So we decided in the end to publish when we did publish. But it's, it's pre-planned. Yeah. The only thing we require at ICIJ is that everyone sticks to the deadline, that no one jumps the gun by publishing, of course, in their own country first. And in this case, we've had everyone comply with that. Everyone waited.
All right, Gerard Ryle, congratulations on shepherding such an enormous project in so many different newsrooms from the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. It's hashtag Panama Papers. You're seeing it all over today. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.